Right, happy Monday, everyone. It is August the 15th, and it is time for our Ask Me Anything Q&A. I was trying to think. I don't see any questions on here right now. I don't see anyone live. Actually, maybe I should click in the group on my computer. That would be a good idea, right? And the only thing I could think of is someone did ask me about thyroid supplements. And so remember, I'm not licensed to recommend supplements, but I can talk about some different things that have to do with the thyroid. So number one, gluten has a special affinity for the thyroid. So anyone who has thyroid issues, complications, autoimmune illness, any of those, number one, gluten is not your friend. It is inflammatory for you. We got to toss the gluten. And then number two is dairy. So get rid of the dairy. So those are not supplements, but make sure you get rid of the gluten. Make sure you get rid of the dairy. So something else that has to do with the thyroid, your thyroid needs certain minerals like iodine and selenium. And it needs a lot of them, but maybe we don't want to supplement with them, but we want to make sure that they're in our diet. So some really great sources of iodine. Looking at myself on the computer and it's like moving at a different time. It's freaking me out. So foods that help you with iodine are your sea vegetables or marine fish. And so if you do eat cold water fish, then that can be one way you can get some iodine, but I prefer things like sea vegetables. But you do want to make sure that you choose some healthier sourced sea vegetables. And so you want to make sure they're not ones that have been farmed from chemical areas or those that are high in radiation. I do like Maine Coast. That is one of my favorite brands of sea vegetables. But if you can find different ways to add those to your dishes, I buy dulse in like a shaker can, and I shake it on my salads every day, my everyday salad. But you can also get like wakame, kombu, or kelp. You can even snack on those. I kind of felt like I was getting a migraine yesterday. I think maybe I had an electrolyte imbalance. I was high intensity. We got a new puppy and he's very high energy. He's a huge German Shepherd and he's like 11 months old and he's crazy. And I think I had an electrolyte imbalance. And so I came in and I just got a piece of kombu and ate that, and 15 minutes later it was gone. But I started getting, I don't know if any of you get migraines, but I get I call it a swirly or an aura that starts before I get the migraine. And I've had 2 migraines in like 7 years. I used to have them every single month, especially around my period, and I haven't had them in like 7 years. And so that was just a miracle to me. But I think it's just because of diet and lifestyle change. So that was totally off tangent. Anyway, so for your thyroid, sea vegetables and selenium. And selenium is in a lot of seeds and nuts. And so Brazil nuts are the first one I think of. And even in sunflower seeds, there is some selenium in there. And so you can have one Brazil nut or a few sunflower seeds. That is helpful. And mushrooms. Mushrooms are fabulous, not only for your thyroid, but for brain health, your immune system, DNA repair, and gut health. And so if you can add mushrooms, then that is wonderful too. So if you have thyroid issues, number one, toss the gluten, toss the dairy, add some foods like Brazil nuts, sunflower seeds, sea vegetables, and mushrooms. Anyway, that is all I can remember about that question about the thyroid. I can't think of any other questions that someone has sent me. So something else that I was thinking about talking about was inflammation and pain. Unfortunately, those are very popular topics here throughout the U.S. Everyone knows someone. If they're not currently in pain, they know someone else who is in pain. And so we think about things, or maybe you've heard about omega-3 fatty acids. So omega-3 fatty acids are anti-inflammatory, and they are in things like walnuts, flax seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds. And maybe those are new to you. Maybe you incorporate those into your foods every day. I highly recommend that you do include those every day. Other things that are anti-inflammatory are your fish oil. I am vegan, not more for health than anything, so I don't eat fish, but flaxseed oil is helpful. Algae oil is EPA. when you eat things like walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, and hemp seeds, they are converted to EPA, which is also found in algae and your cold water fish. And then that creates prostaglandins, which are your anti-inflammatories, which help with inflammation. It looks like I have frozen. Maybe not. Okay. Something else, we need to have omega-6s. And so omega-6s are in a lot of our plant oils. And they are also in like pecans and almonds, sunflower seeds, sesame seeds, and things like that. We have to have the right balance of omega-6s to omega-3s. Out in nature, we would probably choose some more of these. I don't know if we would be omega-3s over omega-6s, but we want more of a 1-to-1 balance. But on the standard American diet, we usually eat a lot more omega-6s. I think that I've heard some people are closer to like 20-to-1 when it needs to be 1-to-1. And so the closer we are to 1-to-1, the more anti-inflammatory we are. The farther away we get from 1-to-1, the more inflammatory we are. So if you already are suffering some sort of illness, maybe you've had an autoimmune diagnosis, a cancer diagnosis, any of those, then you are already inflamed. And so it's very important that you don't have too much omega-6s, because that's going to create inflammation. We do need these fats, like low fat can be dangerous because we do need fat for all sorts of different systems in our bodies to cushion all of the organs, for our cell membranes, for our hormones, and things like that. And so we hear about good fat and bad fat. So I've done a video on heated fats. We don't want to ever heat fats. You can use oils as a dressing, but you don't want to cook an oil or heat it, but use them as a dressing. And so that is a good way to do it. But we also need fats for our hormones and I already said that, and our brain health, our neurotransmitters. Please, I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with my internet today. But other clues that you're inflamed are sinus congestion, respiratory issues, histamine issues. If you've fallen or you have some sort of injury, there's inflammation. Some people have genetic tendencies towards inflammation. If you have pain, like I said, if you have certain illnesses, and if you've ever received a diagnosis with itis or algia, like fibromyalgia, that means pain. And so what that means is inflammation has already occurred in your body, and we need to find ways to put out those flames. So something that occurs with our foods is arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid is something that we need to have for inflammation. Inflammation can be good. If you cut yourself, you want your cells to come and try to repair things. But then if we have too much, that's when it gets out of control. And that's when we start creating more damage than healing. Arachidonic acid is found in flesh foods. Like we said, it's created in us. It's also created in other animals. So it is in meat, it's in eggs, it's in dairy, but it's also in peanuts. And so if you're trying to reduce inflammation, then those foods need to go out, but so do peanuts. Like I said, if we have too much omega-6s, that can create too much arachidonic acid as well. And your body just doesn't know how to turn off the inflammation. So omega-6s, like I said, are your pecans, your sunflower seeds, sesame seeds. Those things are really good for us. We just don't want to have too many of them. And if we have them on top of processed foods, which are inflammatory, meats, eggs, dairy, any of those, then we're going to have too much inflammation. So we need to be able to convert these foods to the prostaglandins to help to extinguish the fire, right? And so we need things like B vitamins, B1, B6, B12, vitamin C, vitamin E, magnesium, zinc, biotin. All of those things are necessary to make that conversion. So even if you are eating flax seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, all of those things, if you don't have those vitamins, you're still not going to be able to convert things to help with your inflammation. So it's very important that you're getting all of these vitamins. And at the same time, things like trans fats, alcohol, caffeine, those can also prevent you from converting those healthier fats. Vegan butter. So a lot of people say, well, I don't eat butter, I eat this vegan butter. Well, that is a heated oil that has been whipped to make what is a margarine, and that is also inflammatory. So arachidonic acid breaks down into these other things, thromboxanes and leukotrienes, and that creates even more inflammation. But the one way we can keep that from happening is to add even more vitamins and minerals. Using things like ginger and turmeric. You may have heard that those are helpful for pain. Vitamin E, which I've already mentioned. So vitamin E is in our nuts and seeds. Bioflavonoids. So bioflavonoids are your rainbow foods. We're looking for those brightly colored foods. Look for deep purples and blues, those colors that are kind of harder to find. Those really bright colors are going to help you with inflammation. Selenium, which I talked about with the thyroid, zinc and turmeric, those are helpful. So foods that are raw, like your raw fruits and vegetables, are going to be very high in vitamin C. Your nuts and seeds, raw nuts and seeds, not roasted and salted, those are inflammatory. Raw nuts and seeds, those help you with your vitamin E. Things like quinoa, amaranth, millet, raw greens, and even steamed greens, sea vegetables, they're going to give you nice minerals and things like that. Gluten, like when I talked about with the thyroid, gluten can damage nerve endings, your joints, your blood vessels, create antibodies, and even damage pancreas cells. And so people will tell me, well, I eat gluten and I feel fine. Well, gluten may not give you a stomach ache. It may be creating inflammation somewhere else in the body where you can't feel it until it's done a lot of damage. My article, I already wrote my article for this Friday, is going to be on gluten and what gluten does to us. I was going to write the article where it's everything, like how and why we go gluten-free and how to actually eat gluten-free. And then I realized the article is too long. So this week will just be why, and then next week will be how. So another thing that we need to think about is cholesterol. So cholesterol is anti-inflammatory. Wait a minute. What? Cholesterol is bad for our heart. But cholesterol is needed for cell structures and for all of your hormones. So that means cholesterol is good, but your body makes all that is needed. So we don't need to eat more cholesterol to get the cholesterol that we need. We need to just let our body create it. But if we are highly inflamed, cholesterol's job is to come to aid in inflammation. It is anti-inflammatory. So if you are creating cholesterol, but you're not eating cholesterol, that is a sign of inflammation in your body. And so there is some kind of inflammation somewhere. We have to remember heart disease is a silent killer. So if you're not eating cholesterol and your cholesterol is going up and you're not feeling it somewhere, then it is very important to do things like eating anti-inflammatory and doing things to protect your heart. It could be damage to blood vessel linings. Your cholesterol will go there to repair things, but it is very sticky and other things can get trapped in there, especially inorganic minerals and stuff like that. And so that can create a clot, but it also can create some more damage. So you think about a zit. So most of us have seen a zit on a face. And so you have this pimple on your face and it has a head. And if you clean it, you avoid touching it or rubbing it, then after a while, it will go away. But if you wash it several times, you're rough, you exfoliate, or maybe you wash it several times a day, you're doing all the things you think you're supposed to be doing, but you rub that end off, then you know it gets really sticky, and then sometimes it swells and it gets even worse. Well, that is the same thing that is going on in blood vessels when there's inflammation. The cholesterol goes in there, and so the linings swell, and it has kind of that pus inside. It's got inflammation. Well, if other things are going through your veins, especially things like sugar, remember sugar is crystals, those sharp areas hit that inflammation, then it's going to break it, and then that pus comes out, and then it gets bigger. I know that's disgusting, but that is what happens inside of our veins. And so we need to think about things and watch that. Looks like my live has ended, but it hasn't. So I'm kind of confused here. I'm going to keep going because my camera looks like I'm still going. So let's talk about painkillers. So painkillers like NSAIDs, they block inflammation. They also block the body from converting omega-3 to EPA. So it kills our firefighters when we take NSAIDs. So NSAIDs are called COX-2 inhibitors, and they're things like Aleve, Advil, Motrin, Celebrex, Vioxx. So you've probably heard some of these names. So if you're taking NSAIDs and you're still not feeling better, there could be some reasons. We'll talk about that. Because NSAIDs, they only go to the thromboxanes. So remember I said arachidonic acid breaks down to thromboxanes. I don't know if I'm saying that right, or leukotrienes. And NSAIDs only block one pathway. And so if you're taking NSAIDs, you still have a lot of pain. It's because the leukotrienes are still being activated. And so how do we help those? That was ginger, that was biotin, that was vitamin E, vitamin C, and bioflavonoids, your rainbow foods. If you take steroids, a lot of people do take steroids, they block all of our fats from converting. And so you can be eating all of the omega-3 rich foods, you could be watching your omega-6s, trying to get everything in balance. But if you're taking steroids, you're not making that conversion and you're killing all of your firefighters. And so you become dependent on the painkillers. Even when you stop taking these steroids, your body's not able to create the anti-inflammation on its own, anti-inflammatory things on its own. So steroids, they block all of your fat from converting. So you get really fast relief, but then you can't go back and correct things on your own. They can cause weight gain, they can cause trunk obesity, muscle breakdown, and an impaired immune system. And so I don't recommend steroids. I know sometimes they are necessary, but if you can get off of them quickly and then use more natural methods, that is usually better. So all processed foods have lost some nutrients. So you may not feel the effects of these inflammatory foods if you're eating processed foods, but they still could be damaging things. So when we eat processed foods, they could be damaging your blood vessels. They could be damaging your thyroid. They could be damaging your gut lining, your pancreas cells, your joints, your nerve endings. And once again, heart disease is a silent killer. And so we may not be feeling where they're creating inflammation. So that's why I always focus on whole foods, eating as many whole foods as you can. So there's some tests that you can use to see if there's inflammation in the body. One is CRP, C-reactive protein. And so that is an inflammatory marker that you can have. You can ask your doctor to run that for you. A blood spot fatty acid test. I think you could even order one of those yourself, but I don't know if you've ever done tests like this, but you prick your finger and then there's a sheet of paper and you fill in these circles with the blood from your finger. I've done that at my chiropractor's office, and she may be able to do that for you too. But that will that will tell you in your blood if it's more omega-3 or more omega-6, if you're missing some certain fatty acids in your diet. So a lot of people will use pH test strips. You can test your saliva, and you can also test your urine, and they usually will tell you on the box to test those. You want a more alkaline environment when you're looking for ways to aid in pain and inflammation. And so you can see how different foods are affecting your saliva or affecting your urine, so that you can adjust your foods to a more alkaline diet. And then other things that can create inflammation are your thoughts, toxic foods, medications, supplements, excess supplements. So these can even cause stress on your body. I don't know if you take vitamin B2, how many of you taken vitamin B2? You take that and then you have yellow urine. That is how much extra your body is not handling. You're eliminating the rest, but your body still has to filter all of that. So that can create some acid. And over exercising, training for like a marathon or training for I can't remember the name of the events, but I used to do them myself. That is really hard and damaging on your body, and just regular stress. So anytime you're over exercising, or because you're training for something, or you're under a lot of stress, it is extremely important that you, number one, are getting lots of sleep at night, good quality sleep through the night, and resting during the day. And so you have to let your body recover from that added stress. If you are in good health and eating an alkaline diet and eating green smoothies for breakfast, large, raw, high green salads for lunch, then you may be able to tolerate something like pizza for dinner. I'm not recommending it. That is still gluten. But if you are in really good health and eating these lots of high green foods, then maybe you can handle that. But most of us are not in excellent health. And every time we do have some, like even one bite creates inflammation. Antibodies, if you have autoimmune illness, antibodies are created, and that is something that we cannot undo right away. I've read somewhere where if you have issues with gluten, one bite of gluten can set you back 3 to 6 months. One bite. And so you have to think about it. Is it worth it? Yes, those cinnamon rolls look delicious, or that cupcake. But for me, I'm not going to eat it because I don't want to undo all the hard work that I've been doing for the next 3 or 4 months. I don't want that. And so we have to remember things like that. So anyone who has a diagnosis with cancer or autoimmune illness, eliminate gluten and dairy right away to help you with inflammation. We have to just remember each bite is either creating inflammation or helping you with inflammation. One thing about coconut. So we hear a lot about coconut. Some people put coconut oil in their coffee. Do not do that. But coconut can increase your conversion from alpha linoleic acid to EPA. So when you're eating walnuts, flax seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, they get converted to EPA, which is what we take when we take fish oil or algae oil or eat sea vegetables or eat cold water fish. So you can convert that in your body. But your body isn't going to convert 100% of that. But coconut, whole coconut, helps you to convert that up to 10%. So if you're only converting, 8% of that flax to EPA and you eat that with coconut, then you're going to be converting 80% of that flax. And so it's good to have some coconut when you're eating the omega-3s, not coconut oil, but whole coconut. You can buy coconut flakes that are not, make sure they don't have added sugar. So you want to buy whole coconut flakes if you buy those. But just read your ingredients. Always read your ingredients. I do like the raw coconut butter, and that is something you could put in some things. Just be very careful because it's a lot. And it's very condensed when you're eating any kind of nut butter, coconut butter, any of those. So I prefer the whole if you can do that. Just sprinkle some coconut on your green smoothie with some flax seeds in it. Watch for chemicals. So anytime we have chemicals in our diet, there's high mercury in fish. So if you do eat fish, you're choosing that way to get EPA in your diet, then don't eat it more than a couple of days a week, because the mercury that is in fish, the other toxins that are in fish, they're going to be stored in your liver. They're going to be preventing detoxification, and they're going to be creating inflammation. And so it's much better to eat other sources of food that do not come packaged with chemicals. So what are our answers? Eat brightly colored foods. We're looking for bioflavonoids and brightly colored foods. Like I said, look for those dark purples and dark blues, bright reds, those foods. Berries and cherries, very anti-inflammatory, and cherries have been shown to help with pain management. High greens, raw and steamed. So combinations of both. Lots of greens. In my Create a Healthier You program, we eat greens 3 times a day. They're that important. Very high in fiber, very high in vitamins, very high in minerals. That's why we have them raw and cooked. Ginger and turmeric are both very anti-inflammatory and also help with detox. Walnuts, chia, flax, and hemp. Those are all alpha linoleic acid, which help you with your omega-3s. Mushrooms, algae, sea vegetables, and Brazil nuts for selenium. They help with inflammation. Pumpkin seeds, very high in zinc. Zinc is also very important to help with conversion and help creating those anti-inflammatory components to put out the inflammatory fires. Lentils, mung beans, and adzuki beans are very high in B vitamins. You can sprout those and even eat them raw after you've sprouted them. And green tea. So all of those are very helpful to help with pain management. If you have been on steroids or NSAIDs, then you definitely need to pump up those foods because, like I said, you've killed all of your firefighters. You need to find a way to revive those, create some more firefighters to put out that. So we do have some herbs that are also COX-2 inhibitors, like your NSAIDs, but these are more natural and they don't come with the side effects, except for the first one. The first one is licorice root. If you are someone who has low blood pressure, then licorice root is a good one for you. If you have high blood pressure, do not take licorice root. But licorice root is very sweet. It only takes a little bit. I buy it in powdered form and in root form and actually use it as a sweetener because we do not have high blood pressure here, but it's also demulcent, which means it helps with all of your mucous membranes, and it also helps with pain relief. It also helps with the adrenals. It's specific to the adrenals. It just happens to be a COX-2 inhibitor as well. Skullcap. Skullcap is something that you need to take long term. That you can take it for a few days. It's not going to help with pain and inflammation, but if you take it long term, that helps. Usually in a tincture, it doesn't have a very good flavor. Cat's claw is one I'm not as familiar with, but that is also a COX-2 inhibitor. And all three of those, licorice root, skullcap, and cat's claw, are all demulcent and help with your whole mucous membrane. Feverfew is another one that doesn't have an excellent flavor, but it is also helpful. Holy basil is delicious. That's a wonderful one to take at night. Nettles, very high in minerals and fibers. So we grow it, but it's wonderful. You can use it in place of spinach. You have to carefully harvest. You do need to cook it and not eat it raw. It is an excellent tea for minerals and bone health as well. And oregano and rosemary. Include oregano and rosemary in your cooking, in your salads, in your dressings, and things like that. For supplements, I am not licensed to recommend supplements, but things you'll want to look into are fish oil, making sure they are organic, making sure that they are used from fish that are safely harvested and things like that, because fish, remember, is high in mercury and other toxins. Flaxseed oil, algae oil, powdered buffered vitamin C. Vitamin C is wonderful for anti-inflammatories, helping with all of your conversions and also with detox. And I'll repeat these others again: your rainbow foods, your bioflavonoids, brightly colored foods. Green drinks, green smoothies. Get those greens in 3 times a day. Vitamin B rich foods. Those are in your beans, your lentils, your broccoli, asparagus, romaine, parsley. So that just makes a perfect salad right there. Vitamin C rich foods like citrus, kiwi, tomatoes, bell pepper, and your raw greens. So vitamin C is very easily destroyed. So if you're buying produce that's been on the shelf for a long time, it's going to be lower in vitamin C. And so you want to get them as fresh as possible, and you want to eat them raw, because when you cook them, it breaks down the vitamin C. Make sure you read your ingredients on all of your products. Avoid gluten and dairy and allergens and sugar and alcohol and caffeine and eggs and peanuts. And if you're curious about how acidic your body is, acid creates inflammation. You can do things like the test strips, the pH test strips. You can buy test strips at CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, pretty much any drugstore. And eat alkaline rich foods. Those are mostly your high greens. Eat your omega-3 fatty acids, hemp seeds, walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, and get sea vegetables. Sea vegetables are very high in minerals and also help you with EPA, which is anti-inflammatory. Anyway, I see one little notification, but it is not a question for me. I miss seeing all of you, but hopefully this conversation will spark some questions. Post your questions, ask your questions. If you don't want to be public in front of everyone, ask your questions, then DM me and I will talk about it anonymously, like I did the thyroid supplements earlier today. I love to hear from you. So connect with me, let me know what's going on, ask your questions. I love to share, I love to learn, and every time I learn something, I want to just share some more with you. So all of you beautiful people, have a wonderful week,